So I going through this, I started a few different ways. At first, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to pinpoint something I don't like in the sequels, something I don't like in the prequels, something I don't like in the original.
You were just going general.
I was just trying to do that.
Find stuff.
And then later on, I started being like, okay, I wonder if I can find one in each movie.
Yeah.
And I kept challenging myself, trying to find like what is something I don't, whether it's something bigger, like plot holy, something smaller that's just like, well, that was weird. I don't understand what that is. So like, I don't necessarily have mine in an exact like, here is the order of which I dislike this stuff.
Yeah.
But I just kind of have some things.
You're not ranking what you dislike. You're not saying like I dislike this and no one else can like it.
I have one thing that is at the top, and that's all I know. The rest
you have
of these,
one thing at the top.
Yeah, the rest of these things are kind of like just among all that.
I want to know the top thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, it might be very different than what you're expecting. It to be. So
I'm so curious what yours are. You know some of mine. I'm pretty
probably
open and honest about the things I like and don't like. I also love to like things. I have to actively work at disliking stuff sometimes, just because it's just a boring feeling to me. I'm just like, oh, okay, well, don't like that. You know what's awesome? Liking stuff.
Yeah. No, yeah.
That's not to say I force myself to like stuff. I think I'm just way more open to different ideas, things that I didn't think about, like, you know, storytellers, like getting across something that I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. So I'm usually pretty open to stuff, but I got them.
Well,
I got them, and some of them are petty.
And then there's sure, yeah. Well, then there's some things too where like for episode 9, like the idea that Palpatine's back, I can say I wish was seated in the other two movies more so. But I'm also really enjoying because like I was like, well, Palpatine's probably still around. There was cloning stuff, EU, you know, all that kind of stuff. But like now they're filling in more of those gaps with other stories and stuff.
Yeah, they are.
So like you could
just
be
like the prequels benefit. I mean, the prequels which suffered without supplemental material.
Yeah, and there's some other things too that this was a tricky part where there are some things that I don't like as much now for this stuff because of some things that have been added in otherwise.
Good. Okay.
So then like, do I blame it here? Yeah. Do I blame it here? So like to start off with, one thing that I think is kind of a weird element is Leia's memory of her mother.
Yeah.
Especially when you take into the prequels what happens. It's weird for her to kind of talk. I guess you go into like the ideas of the Force. She was born, and in that small window of her life and her life kind of both being on that asteroid at the same time. Yeah. Like that's what she sensed from her, but it also just has this weird...
But also, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it has a weird feeling, but I remember her being really sad. Yeah. And I'm like, does she?
That screams of what it is, which is just we're filling potholes. And sometimes when you fill potholes, it's still bumpy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it.
So, like, that's one of mine where I'm like, okay, because I also want to make sure...
It's distracting every time you watch. I understand.
But then I'm like, do I blame that on what they did in the original trilogy or what they did in the prequel trilogy? Like, I guess the prequel trilogy
sometimes you only need to assign blame. Sometimes things just happen like that.
Sure.
You know, like Lucas I have different ideas than what I had in an off, hand line in 1980. Yeah. You know, I mean, it happens. But it is something that, like, a lot of mine are, damn it, I wish I could watch this movie without thinking of this. And that's definitely one of them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, this is another one from episode 6 that I was like, if I'd never had memory of this, it wouldn't bother me.
Okay.
But it was just because they removed Nub Nub. Yub Nub. Yub Nub. Da Nub. Ba Nub Nub. That song. I was like, man, I love that song, and they took it out. But that's not a plot thing. It was just something when I was thinking about stuff.
Okay, that's
like,
just an extra. Okay.
That's one of those things where I was just like, man, I like that song. I wish I wouldn't have taken it out. But I still have the old ones I could watch, you know?
I mean, I prefer what we have now, but if someone comes up and like, I miss Yub Nub, I'm not going to be like, you fool. Let me tell you what the correct opinion is. But I want to be like, sweet, I hope you get at least a good recording, or maybe like the original trilogy on Disney Plus or something.
Yeah,
you know?
That'd be cool.
That's awesome. I love that people love that song still.
Yeah.
I never really was super fond of it. I shouldn't say that. I had no opinion on it, and then my Star Wars fandom like caressed during the special edition, so it was an easy flip for me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember it be like, what? It's gone now? Yeah. All right.
Like a lot of older fans, like Jedi Rocks. Like they hate Jedi Rocks. They can't stand it.
See, that's
they
one of those...
can't stand that song, but I'm up there like, look at that!
Yeah, no, I love it too. Like, but I think that's one of those things where it wasn't like they still have the like the piano. They still have that.
A little bit.
They didn't remove that really. they just added another one and then did a little bit more.
George Lucas had fun, and it comes across.
Which, I mean, in Episode 6, they added more to the destruction of the Death Star and the fall of the Empire, and like here's Coruscant, here's Naboo, and I'm like, that's cool, especially when you take into account the prequels and like you're seeing these other systems that we didn't get to see at all during the original trilogy because we were focused on other locations and they didn't exist maybe quite yet or whatever. But I think it adds more to the general story. I just really like the Yub-Nub.
Okay.
So that's not a huge one.
That's not a huge one.
I think the Leia, like, I remember being very sad.
That
one's a bigger like issue for me than Yub-Nub.
Yeah, I think one's a preference. The other one, like, it's hard to reconcile.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff hard to reconcile.
If I just, as younger Aaron, never watched or never heard Yub-Nub song, I wouldn't be like, oh man, it's missing. But I feel like if you're watching all of the movies now, you're still gonna get to that Leia part and be like,
sure,
well, that's weird. How does she remember her there?
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, it's only that case because later material changes it, right? Like when it aired, and I don't think anybody really thought of it as they're like, oh, okay, interesting, my first one, are you good with yours?
No, go ahead.
My first one is not that. It does come from Rise of Skywalker, and it's the Sith blade of Ochi of Bastoon. The blade that when you stand at the right spot on this beach,
dagger.
And you put it, the dagger, you get it right into the right spot. It's going to show you where the Wayfinder is on the Death Star 2 destruction on this moon, and it's a big like bundle of controller cords handed to you. When you're like, wait, so this, if I press this button, it'll work. It's like, yeah, I think. Just you pick one. It's so oddly put together.
Sure.
Because I can
agree.
get like, okay, ancient Sith weapon. That I love the like Sith language stuff. Outlawed by the Republic. We had to reboot 3PO. I really love that we have this Endor New Moon or whatever, and the Company 77 and the stormtroopers that rebelled. Oh, that stuff's really cool. It's just that Ochi of Bastoon's blade that when standing right here does this on this superstructure that landed here in the water. So like, did he kind of like, did he get here and he was like,
yeah,
as he was making it? Doesn't make much sense to me. And I'm a person that not just enjoys trying to make sense of something. I find it as like a challenge sometimes, but there's no real good solution to that.
Yeah.
Which is why it's on my list.
Yeah. Nope, that's on mine too.
Yeah,
it's definitely one of my things because I just put Death Star dagger.
I
didn't go back and watch it, so I was like, I remember watching that, and then later on being like, how exactly did that operate?
Sure.
Like, how did they get? Like, I feel like maybe I need a little bit more. Like, why is this a thing?
Sure. We've had things like that before, like Sifo Dyas and the clones in Episode 2, where you're kind of like, wait, what's going on? You don't understand, and later it will be explained.
Yeah,
but for me, the dagger thing is more of a stopgap. Even if we learn more about it, like the Leia thing that you're talking about, that didn't happen for 20 years until he changed what the story was, right? Yeah. Whereas in this movie, I am presented right now, it doesn't work for me, you know? So that's why I had to put it as more egregious for me, as something I hate.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I agree. I had it higher on my list just because like it's one of those things where I was like, I don't get it. Either we needed more then or something. Like the Leia thing, you're right. Like I didn't need more back whenever I was only watching episodes 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
And then once we get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you're like, okay, well that doesn't quite work as much. But maybe we can learn more about that at another time or something. But
all right, we're getting spicy. I want one that you have that I don't agree with.
One, I don't like that they only ever used force speed in episode 1 to get off that dang ship, and we've never used it again.
One of mine is force speed.
Okay. So
I think it's one of the dumbest force powers that's never been brought up. Ever.
It only is there and never again, right?
Yeah, but then you play Knights of the Republic or Jedi Academy, and you're the fucking Barry Allen, you're the Flash, baby. I'm zooming.
Yeah,
it's awesome. Never happens.
No.
It should not have been in there. They should have been like, Master Destroyers!
Just run away. Instead, they're like, psh. And then
they take off.
I feel like there's so many times maybe it could have been useful or we could have used it again, and we've never seen Obi-Wan even in Clone Wars. Yeah. Like, he could have used it so many times, right?
It adds nothing to the scene and only adds, like, well, why don't they use force speed all the time? The constant, you get this from some viewers, like, why aren't they just using the force all the time? It's like, well, they can't. It's a muscle. Can you just always be flexing 200 pounds? No, you idiot. You can't do that. But they never run at super speed like we saw them once.
Yeah.
In the first movie.
Yeah. Right in the very beginning. I remember being a kid, be like, well, that was really cool.
Yeah, I know.
But then, like, thinking about it now, I'm like, they never did that again. Why'd they never do that again? So, all right, well, I didn't find one that we disagreed on. So that's one that we agree on.
No, don't get me wrong. I love Force Speed and Jedi Outcasts because I can use that. Like, you can upgrade it to like level 3, and you literally are just like going over and just like cutting stormtroopers real quick. It looks like you're just like, and the stormtroopers just fall down.
Fall. That'd be great. Oh man.
Anyway, Force Speed. Force Heal is amazingly better as something that just kind of shows up in the movies than Force Speed was, because that's at least utilized. It makes sense for it to be there.
Where does it show up in the movies?
Episode 9.
In episode 9? Okay, yeah.
She heals the snake, true. And then they, Kylo heals her and all that type of thing.
I kind of forgot about that. I was thinking of Grogu.
Grogu does it as well, yeah. But again, there it's actually utilized. Like, Force Speed is not. They use it to like leave a shot.
It's like a transition.
Yeah, it's exactly it's like a wipe.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one. All right. Okay. I got a decent amount here. Here's one from me. The Petronaki Arena battle in episode 2. Mm-hmm. It's a fantastic sequence. But the one thing that bugs me every time I watch it.
Geonosians.
Nope.
Oh, they don't bug you?
It's the way they shot and edited the film together specifically for this scene. George Lucas is like, I'm going to have hundreds of Jedi fight hundreds of battle droids. It's going to be real cool. We'll just shoot. And all they did was they just found a bunch of martial artists.
Yeah.
Put them on a blue screen with sand. And they're like, all right, fight. Like, fight what? Just fight something. And that's what it looks like. It looks like at one point one lady just like kicks. Like there's no action or energy. But most importantly, there's no synergy between the Jedi. I feel like if you nail this scene, it needs to be when 100 Jedi show up, you cannot stop them. That's what it needs to feel like.
Sure.
And that because then you pay off Order 66 in that I spread them out through the entire galaxy. There's only one per 1,000 clone troopers, because when they group together, they're so powerful. That's what Light of the Jedi felt like in the High Republic.
Sure, yeah. In that one, it definitely feels like that.
And I feel like you needed a moment like that, and we don't get that moment. One of the reasons, there's a couple of reasons. One is the way it was shot, which it was a lot of just kind of digital elements placed into spots, and there's not, Jedi never work together really. You just kind of see them just doing stuff. There's not a whole lot of agency with those characters. And I had another point, too, and I can't remember it right now. Oh, yeah. There's also a pretty major deleted set of scenes. Have you ever seen this?
Oh, the Ki-Adi-Mundi stuff?
Ki-Adi-Mundi leads a Jedi strike team to go, shut the droids off, because Lucas is like, well, the kids knew I can turn these off, so they got to go try to turn them off again. So he has all of these shots of Ki-Adi-Mundi and some Jedi awkwardly walking down a hall.
Sindralig, I think, was one, right? Was Sindralig in that one?
I don't remember if Sin was in that.
Was he not? Okay.
But they're just awkwardly doing this for
I've seen the
shots.
deleted scene, and it looks just like the actor who plays Mundi is like.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. It obviously doesn't have the effects done. It would look better with the effects, but it wouldn't look great. And they get there and they hit the button, and all the droids go. And then they capture them, and then they send them to the group that's captured there. And we see that group being put back in, but in the theatrical cut, it's more like...
they caught them over there.
I don't know. The Jedi are so ineffectual, we just have captured some and send them over there.
Yeah.
It's just like a big nothing burger of what it should feel like, in my opinion, which is this is what happens when 1,000 Jedi run onto the stage. And that's why you can't have that happen anymore. The beginning of the Clone Wars is Jedi coordinated. The end of the Clone Wars needs to be Jedi separated.
Scattered, and now they're easier to take out.
I've always just thought that was just a huge missed opportunity. Slash just was not put on film correctly, in my opinion.
Apes together
because
strong.
even the whole make them look more powerful thing is more of a fan thing and more of a me trying to write my own story.
Sure.
Just in general, I should be way more excited when I see that many Jedi together, and I'm always just kind of like, I know that one's name and that one's name, and I can't wait to get to the Yoda part.
Sure.
That happens to me a lot when I watch that movie.
No, I get you. It's the same I feel with Episode 9. It's the defeating of Palpatine from Rey. And we've talked about this before, too, where it's like, I get the idea they're going for, and I think it works, but the way it's shot in the movie just kind of feels like, well, now I have 2 lightsabers, and I can beat you with your lightning.
It does feel that way.
As opposed to, the idea of, I'm all the Jedi versus he's all the Sith. really getting maybe like the Force ghosts that we see on like Endor, like kind of that feel of like, look, they're here and they're with us, having them kind of show up. And there's been fan made versions of that, and I feel like that's more of the fan of me being like, I think it would come across so much better if you did this and just, you know, take Mark Hamill, make him a Force ghost there, make a Yoda right next to him, you know, take Hayden Christensen if you want to, put him over there too, take Kylo Ren even, I don't care, put him over there, you know, just have those Force ghosts there and have all the Jedi be there with Rey. And they're helping to push this. And I think it would feel more powerful than what it does now. Whereas, like, I've seen some people be like, oh, you got 2 lightsabers and I beat you, you know? And I'm like,
behold the power of 2 hands.
Yeah, it's supposed to be more than that. It just, it doesn't quite have that grand feel for, like, now we're beating Palpatine.
I agree. I mean, it's missing some from it. Like, the subtext is there.
Yeah.
But it could have been a little more heavy-handed to create that satisfaction for it. Because... But, I mean, that's also us, like, looking back. Like, the first time I was watching, I wasn't really thinking about what wasn't there. I was just experiencing it. And I value the first time more than any other time I watch it since.
No, I agree. I understand that.
Yeah. But I get you. But it was great to hear all those voices, though.
Yeah. No, I love it.
In the heart of a Jedi lies her strength. Kanan Jarrus.
Yep. All right. Rey. right when they use Alec.
Yep. Rey?
Yeah,
that's in the Force Awakens.
It is in Force Awakens. It's the lightsaber part, isn't it? Yeah, that's when
they get to, and then you hear Ewan very briefly like, these are your first steps. And then in Episode 9, he says these are your final steps, which I'm assuming they're not because she's getting a movie.
All right. So here's, yeah, sure, right? Here's one that I put that I don't like.
Okay.
I also, at the same time, have a reason as to maybe why it's okay.
All right.
But as a kid, I remember always being like, that's dumb.
That's dumb.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is, don't shoot. There's no life forms on that pod. And I'm like, why didn't they shoot? It would have been done. What? You know what happened? Shoot the pod. Like, wait, why? Why?
We might run out of lasers.
Yeah, I'm like, is it like, do you have to pay Darth Vader for every shot you miss or make or something, or what was it? Now, the only thing I think of that could maybe be the solution for this is that maybe like the shot is like a tractor beam, and since it had no life forms on it, we're waiting for someone who's escaping with a life form and snagging that one. But if that's not it, why didn't they shoot that pod?
Yeah.
Because like he's like, we can't let them fall in the wrong hands. We have to find them.
Yeah.
And shoot everything. Like, we know it must have been in this thing when it was done. I don't know. Maybe they wanted to get him whole. I don't know. It was just one of those things where like, why didn't they shoot that?
It's one of those things too where like, if it wasn't even there, I wouldn't have been like, what, they're just letting the pods go by, you know? Like, I wouldn't have, but I was a child when I watched it, so I probably wouldn't think about it that much, but I don't know.
I remember being a kid and being like, why didn't they shoot it?
Yeah. Like you
thank goodness.
Do you watch it now and it still speed bumps you a little bit, or?
There's two things as an adult that I remember being a kid, and it's on my list as the second one.
Yeah.
They're both from the original trilogy of being like, what happened?
Sure.
Why'd they do that?
Some people are saying there's an answer and it's silly, and it's silly that there has to be an answer. Sometimes it's just fun to let characters be dumb.
Maybe. Yeah.
There's no life forms, and it should have been like, why does that matter? It's out of range by now.
Yeah, right.
It should have been something like that.
Yeah, maybe. Like, that guy didn't understand the mission he was given. You know, like I don't know. But no, you want to know the second thing I have that always bothers me from the original trilogy?
No.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right.
No, I want to know.
Oh, you want?
Yeah, tell me.
All right. So in Empire Strikes Back, Luke Skywalker loses a hand.
I couldn't find anything from Empire, by the way, so I'm excited.
Well, isn't gonna go the way you wanted.
This isn't going to end how you think.
No. And he gets a mechanical hand at the end of Empire Strikes Back, right?
He does.
Okay. Which he has in Episode 6.
Yep.
That we show can take damage, but is still okay, right?
The skin is scorched, yes.
How does he get shot? And why does he get shot?
He gets shot by a blaster.
Okay. Why?
Because he is raising his lightsaber above his head, and the guy's like, I know. Because I keep shooting at the blade and it keeps coming back at me, I'll shoot at his hand. Ding.
There's just a point where I don't understand what happened because it's like, all right, choreography, here we go, fighting all these Gamorreans.
Why was that guy aiming up there?
Well, why was Luke like this?
Yeah.
Like, there's a point, and I was always like, wait, what was he doing? Like, if he's blocking something up there, it wouldn't have hit him. is he killing someone up there? Like, there's a point, and he's just standing.
Yeah.
I don't know if
you're
he's
okay.
Like,
yeah.
He's like this.
Sure.
And I'm like, why? Why?
Maybe
as a kid I never understood, and as an adult I never really understood
say, like,
either.
There's, sometimes you're firing, and you also have a stray bolt. Even though that's not going to hit him, he could still use that as a projectile and reflect it, maybe, I suppose. So I might, if someone's going to go wild at my head, I'd be like, I'm going to use that one to hit that guy. Ha! You could do that.
Maybe.
But that guy knew he was going to do it. He
shot his hand before he did it, yeah. So there was something there, and I feel like it might have been one of those things like you were talking about, Ki-Adi-Mundi, just kind of like their group gets brought in.
Yeah.
But like there's like he's fighting here, and then we cut over to a guy, and then we have that shot, and it's like his hand. And then he's like, ah! I was like, and I was always like, the heck was he doing?
Yeah.
That his hand was up there. I don't know.
It is a kind of a weird cut, too.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's also including the not weird, but very quick cut of seeing Chewie gravely injured in that as well. And then, but, it happened so quickly, I didn't notice it for 20 years.
Yeah. I remember us talking about that, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know. That was just one of the things in it that I was like, this is a weird moment for me. And whenever I watch it, even as an adult, I'm always like,
gotcha.
Why? What happened there?
All right.
So it's not like a huge plot hole thing. Yeah. It was just a weird moment that I'm like, it's like the force speed is more of a plot hole in a way where it's like, why don't they ever use that?
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, that was weird. They just used it once, never did it again. So,
no, I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. I like that one.
All my impression. Luke pulling a victory stance, right? It's not a time for victory yet. You shouldn't be like, ha. So I don't know.
Do you want me to get into a spicy one?
Sure, let's do a spicy one.
This is spicy only for me. I don't even know why I called it spicy.
Oh.
I don't like lightsaber forms. Form 1 to 7, I think, are dumb.
Okay.
I hate them. I think they're so limiting. I don't know why we would limit characters to like, well, I do the acrobats. So no, do it all. You're a Jedi. You in an age of projectile range blaster weapons, you use a sword. You should train with every style, every conceivable way. The limits that they put upon these characters to give them D&D like attributes is silly to me, and I've never liked it ever.
So, what are your feelings on martial arts?
I like martial arts.
Okay. Do you know how many different types of martial arts there are? And that's all like I have no weapon and I'm fighting with my hands, right?
Yes.
Some people will study only karate or only aikido or only, all these different forms. They'll do only this one. But there's so many different ways of doing that too, where it's this one is more about using your opponent's momentum or about joints, or this one's about striking.
Yes.
I feel like the forms for lightsabers are similar to that kind of stint, right? Like
I agree, but wouldn't you say like some of our best fighters in the world are on a stage where they use mixed martial arts? And they use different things like jiu-jitsu from here, striking from here, boxing here, wrestling here, and they use whatever works in the moment.
I would agree that some of the best fighters take a balance of different elements from it. Like, they aren't a master of Aikido, and they might not be a master of karate, but they might maybe they were a master of karate and they're supplementing and adding elements of like Aikido or Tai Chi or anything to help complement what they do. I mean, do we not have anyone who's like, what is it, Mace Windu's like really good at like Form 7 or something like that, but like is he bad at all the other forms? Or
it's called Vipad, and it's I have to know this. It's a version of Form 7 that he created on his own, where he combined his dark side nature into his martial art power so that he can literally fight off the dark side. Like I don't know. For me, it's kind of antithetical to like use your instinct, be in the moment. You want to train your body. You want to create muscle memory. But in the moment, you want to do as the Force tells you. And that shouldn't be limited to certain forms that you've trained. I imagine Jedi train every form they possibly can. But that's just a me. Again, these are all me things.
Yeah, but like
me weird baggage I have.
Maybe the Force is telling me to use Force speed, and I can't do that. So like maybe there's just elements like that. Like
maybe
even in Force, like all the Jedi learn to use the Force in different ways, right? Or they're proficient in certain ways. I think it might be similar to that, where it's like this person is this person is more of an aggressor. They should learn a more attacking stance so that they are prepared to be the aggressor, because that's how they typically are. Whereas maybe like Obi-Wan's not, so he learns more defensive forms of some sort of that. Doesn't mean they don't know how to attack either. It's just like this is the priority of how they prefer to fight, maybe.
Yeah.
But
I personally find it more limiting than and codifying than the concept of like midichlorians does, which people like, they hate that you're putting this in a box. It's like, I'm actually kind of cool with that. I don't like putting these things in a box. You know, there's a concept, I have it written down here. It's called a tricata. A tricata in the Star Wars universe is a way of using your lightsaber. Apparently, it's dishonorable. Both the Jedi and Sith don't do it because the Sith think it's weak and the Jedi think it's dishonorable. And it's using your lightsaber's ability to turn on and off during a fight.
Dang, man.
Which is
I love that
so dumb. Why? I mean, that's the only thing that makes lightsabers more interesting than sword fight choreography.
Sure.
Or at least one of the main things. That should be used far more often. And the idea that this, even this term, tricata, was a fan concept that found its way into like one of the guidebooks or the role-playing books or something like that. And I just like every piece of like interesting choreography that I personally have seen uses that in a really cool way. Use it in a way you can't just use a sword. It's a lightsaber. Do it in an interesting way. But apparently you can't because the Sith thinks it's weak and the Jedi think it's a dick move.
Sure.
I think it's so dumb.
I mean, that may be like, I mean, you got to look at the Jedi as kind of like the samurai sometimes, right? And
Sure.
I'm sure there's things where it's like, well, you could do this. Like, that would be dishonorable. We would not do that. And it's like,
I don't know why it's dishonorable.
I'm just saying, like, that's just that's the mindset, right?
Oh, that's
like,
what I'm being told.
Yeah.
I can say I don't like that idea.
Okay. Sure.
I mean, I accept it.
Sure.
I don't start going to people being like, quit talking about Form 2. It's dumb. Dooku just is a great swordsman. He has style, not form. Because when you say Dooku uses Form 2 Makashi, now every other motherfucker that uses Form 2 is going to start, you know? I'm like, no, that's Dooku's style. That's his flair. Make characters with looks and silhouettes that I can identify, yes, but don't limit them to certain things they have to do.
Do you think the style then is strictly his?
No,
it?
he can do a lot of different things.
Okay.
And in fact, I think his style was refined in the Clone Wars, where it's a little loosey-goosey in Episode 2, if you ask me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll agree with it necessarily, because like I said, I'd probably put it closer to like martial arts and that kind of stuff,
Sure.
where it's like even like if you've done karate, like you learn the form of how to do it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean like when you go to fight someone, like we'll hop into a horse stance and then punch them because they're not going to move. You know,
I get you, but I guess what I think about
the process of learning,
with the way that a Jedi is going to act, like they're not going to Form 2 tournaments. Like
No.
they're going out onto theoretical obstacle courses, right?
Sure.
And obstacle course, you're going to use a whole lot of different things to get to it. When you get to one point, you might be, hey, Form 2 might be a good part for this one, right? Let's say, like, you can use little different things in different situations.
Sure.
I just don't like the way that it reads, which is limiting to me. And especially whenever it's brought up in the novels and literature, I don't know. It's always, for me, a lot of my list is those speed bumps that ruin the watching experience for me. It's always a speed bump for me. Even though I've never once been like, if you like it, you know, screw you, you're ruining my experience or something.
Sure.
Some people love it. People make entire lightsaber choreography fandoms and groups around it, and I think that's cool as hell.
Sure.
I just think as a concept, it shouldn't be there.
I think next time we read something that has that in there, I'll try to think about that. But I think I've always looked at it as like, all right, this guy's using his karate to do this. And then whenever I hear that, I don't think of like, oh, man, why isn't he using the Aikido form? Or why isn't he using, you know, the Tai Chi version, you know, or any of that?
Yeah, but like, does it also say like he uses karate and nothing but karate? Like that happens in these books and stuff. Like Obi-Wan is form, help me out, Form 3? He's a Form 3 practitioner. You know, that's what he does. Like in, there's some great literature that I've had with him in there, and they'll say that. I'm like, dang it.
So he would be like, as opposed to like, I think Bruce Lee did karate and a lot of other stuff that he brought into it. Like he would be like a master of Aikido, and that's what he does is Aikido, but he doesn't know karate. He hasn't learned karate.
But
know,
hey,
that kind of thing.
you know,
that doesn't mean he couldn't accidentally use it.
Yeah. Well, that's true, but it's also because this is an after the fact invention.
Sure.
It's not referenced at all. It's not used at all. You can't see someone use Form 3.
Sure. No.
You have to be told that that's what they're doing.
That's why I'm saying, like, in the idea of, like when I took karate, the martial arts that we learned, like, you would practice your shutos or different punches or kicks or whatever it was, and there would be, this is how you stance up like this, you do this, and attack, and do that. And it would repetition over and over and over. But if you were using that in the field, you're not using it in the way that you're learning it.
Yeah.
So there's definitely, I think, a difference there where it's like, this is what he learned, but that doesn't mean that that's solely how he fights over here either.
Sure.
And what did Qui-Gon use a different form too, I imagine? From Obi-Wan?
I believe so.
Because I don't know if it translates well or how it translates, because I haven't really followed the forms for them all. But when you look at Rebels, what is it called? Twin Suns?
Twin Suns.
In Twin Suns, whenever he goes from one and then he switches stances to a Qui-Gon looking stance, I'm like, oh, like, is that him switching to like a different type of form or focusing on more of a different form? But then he doesn't do what Qui-Gon does, and he wins, you know?
Sure.
So it might also be like, well, the reason Qui-Gon, he didn't adapt properly like Obi-Wan did in this situation, or he's had time to think about it, or whatever the case is. So, but no, I get you. I don't want them to have to be painted into a box either, but I think I always thought of them as like different martial arts stances for Jedi.
Yeah.
And then like maybe someone's really good at 1 and 5, and like that's what they really studied. But it's hard to, like I said, there's so many martial arts. It's hard to be really good at all of them.
Yeah.
So you kind of focus on one and make that the main one you go for.
I just always found this utilization to be a little lazy in that it'll like just tell me, oh, he's using Viapad, but you don't have to explain what's happening. You just tell me it's happening, you know, especially in like literature.
Gotcha.
That'll happen.
Our forms,
but my biggest one is the Tricata thing.
Have forms been heavy in canon now, or is that more of an?
Oh, no, they've been heavy in canon since their inception.
Because I know Extended Universe use that, but I was trying to think of how often I hear it or see it in like canon Star Wars that we've had.
Yep. There's whole big sections in it, and the Path of the Jedi, Way of the Sith stuff. You know, those source books are really cool.
Okay.
I just don't like those parts. I'll read them. I think, I still think the lore can be interesting, and even just because I don't like it doesn't mean I don't like accept it. I don't be like, no, I'm ignoring that. Like, it's obviously part of it. So many times when I'm watching something that Anakin does and it's super heavy-handed, I'll be like, Dinjum So. That's the form that he uses, and that's that super power strike. You can see Luke use. Like, I think that can be interesting. I just think it's like, as an actual thing, I just would rather not have it.
Okay. Maybe next time we have more of it, think about it of like maybe they've experienced martial arts to a peak of this, but maybe it's not just like that's the only thing they do, and maybe we can see if it feels differently.
I get that. I just don't know if that necessarily translates super well to what.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I want to look at it like that way, because I'm trying to think of when I've read or seen them using forms, and I've never taken it that way. So, all right. So my next one that I really want to make sure I mention, I'm going to mention 2 here real quick. I've been talking about stuff from episode 6.
Yeah.
Back original trilogy, when I only had 3 movies, I didn't like Boba Fett's death.
Yeah.
More stuff has changed that after the movies came out, but given that and the little time we had with them, I hated that.
Of course you did.
So I just wanted to say that real quick. It's not the same anymore, but
if it was a satisfying death, you would have been more likely to be like, man, that was such a good ending for the character, but it's not very satisfying.
No.
It's funny.
Yeah, I guess so.
And it's really funny now because it's just a huge inconvenience.
Yeah.
I mean, inconvenience. The guy has to be in a Bacta tank and daydream like 6 times to heal, but still, you know, it's kind of funny.
But blind Han Solo just being, what?
I love the idea because George Lucas, I mean, you know, he's a funny guy, but like Empire's coming out and everybody's all hyped up for the Boba Fett character, and he's like, just a design. Joe Johnston designed him. So just in the next movie, he just writes it and he's like, and then he dies. I just love the idea of him writing that down and writing to himself.
But my real one I wanted to mention was that I don't like the Canto Bight plotline with Finn and Rose through Last Jedi.
Okay. Now there's a lot of parts to that.
So I think,
is there a specific, or is it just the whole thing?
I think as a larger whole, I don't like Finn's utilization in the sequel trilogy as much. Like, I would have liked to have had more growth on his character in a general sense. But I feel like the Canto Bight stuff is, I don't know what it's meant necessarily as a whole in the movie to really represent, except for like, well, you know, both sides are kind of bad. Because we also we're supposed to be going for this one hacker. We don't get him. We find another random hacker. And we use him. Yeah. And then he betrays us. Yeah. And then that never really comes back either. Like, we already kind of had that with like, oh, let's go to Lando, talk to Lando. He betrays us, but you know what? He feels that he's done the wrong thing. He comes back, he tries to make it right, and then he's on our team and he's working with us. And like, I felt more satisfied with that as like a well, the Empire's after us. Let's try to do this. Get out of here. Lando betrays, and like everything kind of like comes full circle, and it makes sense as to where our position is and where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
And the Canto Bight stuff, it seems like we saw a cool place with aliens. We didn't know what we wanted to do with Finn, except for maybe have him like get to know Rose a little bit more, I guess, and kind of like.
Well, he's only concerned with helping Rey at a certain point.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
He's trying to run again.
Yeah.
Because now that, and I agree.
That's
Actually,
what he was going to do, right?
Yeah, I like Finn in 7 and 8. 9 is where it gets a little messy, just because they were trying to do, like, they brought Zaina in with the Division 77, those stormtroopers, and they kept giving him like this, like, Rey, I got something to tell you, you know, and you're like, cool. You should have said it last movie and have it actually do something in this movie, you know. So I can agree that utilization, I love him in 7, 8 less so, but 9, I really wish Finn was given a lot more to do actively.
And
but
I feel like that stems from this. Like, I don't feel like he gets a lot to do in 8, that he doesn't really go too far in 9 either.
Honestly, I love Canto Bight. I don't really love the extended slow hyper chase that is the reason that they're going there for.
Sure.
But I love, like, you know, when you're presented with it, it's a desert planet, and you land in the one spot where all the rich people are.
Sure.
Like, that's kind of cool,
you
know?
Sure.
Like you said, like, both sides are bad. What they're talking about is, like, there is the good and bad happening over here, and then just the ruling class and the rich people that don't give a shit. And that's what they're talking about with Canto Bight. Here are all the people that, like, as your Star Wars are happening, we're just living our lives, and we get to have happy lives. You don't, because you're not as privileged as we are, but we do. Look how amazing this is. You know, we run these beautiful animals, you know, for our enjoyment, and, you know, their slave masters are beating kids. You know, like, there's some terrible stuff happening there too. But that is where the movie hinges its hope on as well. Like, even in that gutter, where the worst people in the galaxy, you could say arguably some of the worst people in the galaxy live, there is hope, and there's those kids telling the story of Luke Skywalker, stories that Luke didn't even believe about himself, and now they're saying it, you know? So all that stuff stems from Canto Bight. And it's also a classic, let's look at all the cool alien segments. We had some of it cut out, unfortunately. One with, like, the best Warwick Davis alien design I've ever seen.
Really?
That didn't get to make it. But I like the, like, I don't know. We usually see, like, the dark and the gritty. Here's where the bounty hunters and aliens hang out. But there, it's all prim and proper, and it's a lot more like galactic opera, like we kind of see in Episode 3, but you actually just get to see more of the actual people. So I love the world building of Canto Bight. I love the Canto Bight police, their speeders and, like, their outfits.
Yeah.
To be fair, they weren't featured super much, but I might like them more just because I have the action figures. I'm like, holy, these look cool, you know?
Sure, yeah.
And I really like DJ's performance with the stutter. I think it's a really bold choice.
Sure.
And that all stems from Canto, so I think it goes for me. I just don't like that we have to go back to, well, let's catch up with the slow chase, you know?
No, I think I like everything that you're talking about. And I think it's great to be able to go and have this alien section, but I feel like it does nothing for the story, and it doesn't come back around to where it really had any meaning for them to really go, except for, like, building the relationship of Finn and Rose so that there's the sacrifice type of play done later on Crate.
Yeah, I mean, Rose is telling Finn about, like, hey, this is... Because Finn's just trying to get away from the First Order. If I get away from the First Order, it's good. And she's like, it's not good. It's like this everywhere. Like, he does learn those lessons. And it does get to the point, like, okay, I'm not going to run. I'm going to sacrifice my life. But if you're going to do something like that, you got to make it count. You're just going to die. You need to actually, if you're going to risk your life, do it in a meaningful way. You know, like, those lessons stem from that first conversation they have on Canto Bight. So I can't say, like, nothing comes back from it. But, I mean, could it be better? Sure, but every scene could be better, you know. I don't know. Canto Bight doesn't bug me as much. But I can't tell you, and I won't tell you, you're wrong.
You can't make the scene of Darth Maul showing up and igniting both sabers better. That's perfect.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
I don't know. It's been one of those things where I'm always like, man, if I just took this part out and just left Finn on this spaceship, I don't feel like I feel like we'd be in the same place we were. Yeah. And you could have maybe had him and Poe have some kind of different conversation to where they need to. I don't know. I feel like I wanted more out of that, and, like, Finn sticks around, I guess, but ultimately going into the next movie from there, like, I feel like since Force Awakens, like, okay, I like what they're doing with this character. What's it going to be like in the future? And I don't think we get to where I'd like him to be, you know?
I'd like to... I agree. And you're right. I mean, if you change Canto Bight, you might put him on a different road, on a different path, right? Yeah. If he doesn't go do that, he goes to do something else, and maybe we get the ball rolling a little bit more with him.
Yeah.
I would like to see Canto Bight more.
If the Canto Bight expedition that he had, if all of it circled back around, but you somehow found a hint of Palpatine somehow within that, I feel like that just changed the whole thing because then it connects into the next movie too.
I get you.
You know, but like having DJ with the stutter and stuff, like I think the character's fine, but ultimately I don't know that meeting him really did much except for just betraying them and putting them back kind of in the same boat that they were in already. Whereas they were like looking at trying to save all the rebellion.
Sure.
And it's like, well, because he betrayed us, now we're in the same spot we were, and we don't really get anywhere further. But if you would have had something that maybe I don't know, like you said about like Luke Skywalker, but I feel like that hope I already got and understood from the first movie when they're like, you know, Luke's out there and we're looking for him, and you know, we don't know where, you know, mystery, and like he's mysterious, and we hope that we can find Luke Skywalker and bring him back because he will help save us. And there's that kind of hope that I get from him there.
And then it's completely dashed.
Sure, yeah.
Right? Like Luke broke under the pressure of that hope.
Which I have no problem with Luke Skywalker, I don't think, in the way he plays out with that. I think it's done pretty well. It's just I think I wanted more out of Finn, and I just whenever I watch Episode 8 and the Canto Bight stuff, I'm always just kind of like, I feel like this could have had something more to add to this, or I could almost just erase this segment and feel almost the same as I do with the rest of the movie already anyway. So that's, I guess, why I don't. Like, I love seeing, I love the putting coins into BB-8 or whatever, you know, like all the aliens being there. Like, we don't even really get to talk to the hacker we're supposed to be talking to. Yeah. Like, there's so many elements that I'm like, I wish we could have gotten more out of this, and we just don't get that.
Well, maybe we can agree on, like, would you like to see Canto Bight again?
Oh, yeah.
Because I personally would love, like, a show like Andor to go there. Because that place is really coded, I feel like, for, you know, to appreciate it, you got to be a little older, I feel like. You have to understand, like, hey, there isn't just good or bad guys. Like, there are just, like, there's things out there that, like, isn't about morality and the dark side and the light side. Some of it's just about money and greed, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Sure.
And then you can have Rose be like, well, there's something we can do about it. We can fuck up these streets, you know, and release the deer. You know what I'm saying? And it's this little acts of rebellion that go a long way. But I would like to see it maybe in a show with the tone of Andor, where we could really, like, what was someone like Cassian, who doesn't need to be told why this is bad. He knows why this is bad. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
That's a good one, though. I like it. Want me to jump into one of mine?
Yeah, I was looking to see what I had left, and I think I have like 2 things left.
Yeah.
So if you have, we can go through some.
I have some like quick ones. If you want to rapid fire some quick ones.
I suppose so.
Why aren't Gamorreans fat anymore?
What do you mean? Why aren't they fat?
They are noticeably slimmer than they were in Episode 6.
Why do you have to like it's like reverse fat shaming?
It's not.
You're like, you're too healthy to be a pig.
No, I'm demanding consistency.
What do you mean? Are all Wookiees the same size? Are all Ewoks? Do all look the same?
Do they put any fat suits in the Gamorrean suits that they make now?
Do they put any fat suits?
Yes.
Like, do they put fat into the Gamorrean thing? I don't know.
They do. So the only difference on your high and mighty horse of fat shaming is just more stuffing.
But I mean, that's what fat is. It's more stuffing.
I know. But why aren't we making them true to what they look like?
Why can't sometimes, like, hey, you know what, these Gamorreans work on themselves and they are in shape.
Have one or two good, like, ones are like, these are ones that are in shape. I'm like,
we
oh,
did.
sweet.
We had 2 of them in Boca Boba, and you complained about it.
Yes, I did. But every time we've seen them, we've seen them, they're smaller.
They only made 2 suits.
No, I don't know if they did or not.
I don't know either.
It might be the case, but I don't understand it.
So there's those 2 from Boca Boba, and then there's one that was in, like, an arena. And you know what? That was, like, an arena, like, Gamorrean, right?
Yeah.
So, like, he's probably in shape more so than, like, you know what? You're used to the ones that were in Jabba's palace back when Jabba was in charge, who loved to eat.
No.
And these guys all got real lax and
sir.
calmed down.
I'm not just used to them. I'm used to them and every appearance of Gamorreans up until the Disney Plus shows.
Like when?
Like every single one.
Okay, Jabba's palace, episode 6, done.
This is extra information.
There's no Gamorreans in episode 4 or 5, right?
Just not just the movies. We have a Star Wars podcast where we talk about almost anything but the movies sometimes.
Yeah, no.
You know, they're all over the place.
Where's another one?
I can't name them all off the top of my head.
Exactly.
Because there's so many, I can't grab one cup of water from the rushing river, Aaron.
The rushing river of Gamorrean fat.
I don't feel too strongly about this one. but it speed bumps me every time we see it because when I was a kid, I was drawing every Star Wars alien, and I just know exactly how fat they're supposed to be, and they are half that fat.
I commend them for their working out.
I don't think it's a matter of
food management. And
see, so you're saying that the costume designers are looking at it and like, you know what? This is insensitive to pigs. What do you mean?
Well, like, at what point is it all in the future past Episode 6 that we're getting these smaller Gamorreans?
So far.
So, like, after a point, they got cushy jobs with Jabba the Hutt, and then Jabba the Hutt died.
As a species.
Well, I mean, how often do you see Gamorreans? That's what I'm saying. How often do we see them?
I don't know.
Do we see them in their natural planet habitat?
We've seen at least 4. We have the 2 in Book of Boba Fett, and we have the 2 that were fighting in Mandalorian. They're not the same 2 characters.
But both of those are like
they were the exact same size.
They could have came from Jabba's palace and be like, you know what? Now we really got to work for it because we had that cushy job with the Hutts, and they're all dead, and now we can't just eat all the frogs like we used to.
Because Bib Fortuna is, and he's real fat.
He ate them all. He ate all the frogs.
Rapid fire. Sorry. That was one. Bouncing X-wings in Episode 4 bug me.
When they're in space?
Yeah. Does it bug you?
They're turbulence.
I know.
I don't know.
But and it's one of those things in Episode 4 no one cares because that was the first movie and that's just what it looked like. And like, how do we give motion to what is ultimately just a box we're shooting? It's like, just do this, I get it. But every time I watch it, and it doesn't happen in any other time, it always bugs me. Rapid fire. I don't like the bouncing X-wings.
All right.
Man, I have a lot, Aaron.
I knew it. All right, here, I'm going to name this one.
Okay, you go one.
Episode 3, I wish that we did more with Palpatine versus the Jedi. Whenever Mace comes in with people, right?
That's my number 1.
That's your number 1?
Mace versus Palpatine is the worst lightsaber fight on
Oh, man. I wasn't even just counting Mace versus
on
Palpatine.
camera, including all the TV shows and the Clone Wars.
Like, what we get with Savage and Darth Maul is the thing I wanted Palpatine to do in Episode 3.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, he should have came in there, and I wanted, he kills him real quick, but it's like, oh, all right, I guess. But I just wanted more out of that.
Yeah, and it would. The sad thing is that it was there. It was done. Nick Giller's no fool. He had it choreographed. He had it previs shot. You can go watch it, and it's awesome. And George Lucas came in and ruined it all. And I've never had one person be like, actually, here's a good point. But it actually makes sense now. It's always been like, yeah, well, you don't want to show the next fight, 2 fights that happen, But what happened is that Lucas was all up in his own ass about the compliments he was getting about you got Ewan McGregor and you got Liam Neeson to actually go on screen and fight, and you can see their emotions, and they're so good. And like, yeah, that's awesome. But you know what that had? Ray Park. They had a wushu champion that you're fighting. And you, as a person that's done a lot of lightsaber choreography in your life, if one person knows what they're doing, they can make both people look like what they're doing.
It ups everybody a little bit.
And you know who didn't know what they were doing?
Anyone?
Sam Jackson and Ian McDiarmid.
Sure, and whoever had to play alien masks.
Yes. And Lucas came in and it's like, no, I want to see their faces. I want to see these shots. And Nick Gillard is like, yeah, we can do that for like insert shots though, because we can't do that. Like, let's just do what we did for Dooku and let's replace their faces. And Lucas is like, no. I know what I'm doing. Do this. And what's Nick Gillard going to do? He can't do anything. So they shoot that. Half the shots are just slow, uninspired. Sam Jackson looks like he has no idea what his next move is going to be, and Ian McDiarmid looks like he's in pain. No, because he's also having to pull these ridiculous, like, dramatic mask faces, like very Chinese opera. Like, Lucas will just have all these ideas, and he'll throw them all at the wall, and they'll stick. And sometimes it's genius, and sometimes it's not. And this time, for me, it is the worst lightsaber fight on screen.
I mean, I think so too.
Yeah,
I don't think there's. I mean, I even enjoy like Episode 2's like fights. Yeah. Like there's Dooku who's like, well, that's not Christopher Lee and stuff, but it looks better than this does. And I just wanted more out of Palpatine finally unleashing because like you get that a little bit whenever he's fighting little green CGI Yoda,
a little bit,
but like him unleashing after being hidden away for 3 movies here, and he's like being hiding. I'm not Sidious.
He's supposed to. I mean, he turns into a tornado. Like, he literally is a tornado.
He jumps down and spins at him.
And he steps there, and all the other Jedi go like, ah! And they just get stabbed,
Yep.
You're supposed to be able to see the Dark Lord of the Sith revealed at last. And I don't feel like you see that. No. You're supposed to hinge the entire trilogy on this fight. This is what turns Anakin Skywalker. Mace Windu refuses to take this man into custody, and he's going to kill him. That's what turns Anakin. And it's just something about like the blocking, the shot choices, the choreography, and the performance that does not work for me and never has.
Yeah. And then it feels like because you don't feel like Sidious is super strong in that moment, him just going like, ha! Just throwing out the window, I'm kind of like, all right.
Yeah.
That's where we went with that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, that was one of my top ones as well.
The directing in that scene is subpar, unfortunately. I got to go hard because when I don't go hard, when I go nice, I go hard when I'm nice. I got to go just as hard when I'm going bad.
All right, what were other things you had for
okay.
Did you have any other rapid fire things?
Yeah, everybody knows this. I do not like the Inquisitor lightsaber.
Oh,
I don't like the way you hold. I don't like the way it's utilized. I don't like a lot of things about it. But I think for characters that are meant to just hunt Jedi and be intimidating, but in a technological way like the Empire is, and not in a spiritual way like the Jedi are, I think it works. I just dislike it.
It's a human Inquisitor or whatever humanoid Inquisitor form of General Grievous being like, I learned your Jedi arts from Dooku.
Yeah.
It's like, Dooku taught you to do this? What do you mean?
All right, spin your lightsabers in your hands and walk forward.
And pull out 2 more from your other 2 hands. Like, Dooku didn't teach you this. What are you talking about?
And cough.
So
I get you.
Yeah, it's the same. It's like intimidation, just being scary, and I don't think they spend that much time training their Inquisitors.
Yeah.
So it's a supplement to make them better and intimidating.
So everybody knows I don't like them. I don't like that they can fly, but I will pinpoint the moment I hate them the most. Do you remember in Twilight of the Apprentice, right? Ezra's like hanging off the edge, and one of the Inquisitors has his double-bladed, spinning lightsaber, and I'm gonna get you.
And he turns it off.
And then he goes, wait, I have an idea, and he turns off the blades, and he turns on different blades.
He turned on saw blades
that are shorter and not as efficient,
right?
And not as cool.
Weren't they like spiked saw blades?
They were just spiked saw blades. You know what's not as cool as a lightsaber? Spiked saw blades. And then he has to bend over to make it threaten, and it doesn't work. And because he's doing it, his lightsaber breaks, and he falls as he dies as he tries to fly away.
That's when you drew your line?
No, the line was drawn before. That's when I had enough.
I do think it was really weird that they decided to put these saw blades on. It's like, you know what? We're going to make it like this. Yeah. No. I feel like it's like we made that so that we could do an intimidation thing of being real close to someone and staring at them. Because a lightsaber, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But
hate that.
I don't know. How else would they cut open boxes without tiny saw blades?
Yep.
Yeah, right?
Palpatine's message in Fortnite. Hate that. Hate it so much I have yet to go watch it. So much I didn't like about it. Have you watched it?
I think so, yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it's cool.
Is
I
it
wish
cool?
they would have put it in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
I mean,
I hope they still do.
It might be part of my old man crankiness, too. Because I'm like, oh, okay. Did we put it on the largest gaming platform in the world? Is that not big enough for you?
Did a whole bunch of kids watch it and want to go see Star Wars?
I get you.
You got to bring in the next generation, Eric.
Quick, rapid fire.
But I hope that we bring that into like somewhere at some point and we get to see it.
Gotcha.
Sequel. It's like Bad Batch. Remember Bad Batch? We're like, oh, this is the very first episode of Bad Batch. This is the thing he said here.
Absolutely.
Like, put that somewhere else and we'll see that again.
I know that we're over time. I'm just going to quickly go over my last ones here.
Quickly.
The Sith Army lasts one day. It's such a shame just as a fan of our troop design and army design and like ships and the way that like here's the Vanguard troopers and here's these Praetorian troopers and all this stuff.
You're talking about Episode 9?
Episode 9. It's like, oh, okay, cool. And they got the red armor and this is the Sith Empire and I'm like, okay, this could inform the craziest stuff that happened in the next, whatever's going to happen. And they just all wrap it up.
Yeah.
And they all die. It's all gone one day.
I kind of feel the same about the Knights of Ren.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, oh, man, what's this Knights of Ren thing? That's going to be really cool. And then I feel like we kind of like, all right, we're done with it.
I agree. But the Knights of Ren were given more than one day.
I guess.
The Sith army showed up. They're like, here, we're here. And then they're gone.
Well, the second Death Star got a day.
My next thing in the sequel trilogy is the Death Star obsession. I mean, yes, we have Death Star 2 in Episode 6, and there were people that were much, much older than us that were already, losing their childlike wonder at Star Wars and being like, this is dumb. We're just doing this again.
Like, man, another one?
So then in Episode 7, we have Starkiller Base, which is just like, they literally have a scene where it's like, it's this, but bigger. It's like, okay, I like a lot of parts of it. I like the idea that Palpatine was building Starkiller Base before he even gave the Death Star to Tarkin. You know, like that's a really cool lore implications.
Yeah.
But just it's not very inspired when it comes to that.
There's a Death Star, and then Death Star 2 is a bigger Death Star, and the Starkiller Base is an even bigger Death Star.
And then the next movie, it's like, all right, there's this big door that no one can open up, and it's like, well, we have a miniature Death Star cannon, and we're gonna fire at it. So all right, we have a miniature Death Star cannon. And in the next movie, we have super Star Destroyers, and they all have a Death Star weapon. It's like, fucking now there's a bunch of Death Stars, you know? Like, Star Wars does not need super weapons as a foil. It needs drama, it needs fantasy, it needs craziness, but it doesn't need Death Star super weapons. If I could drop, literally, this is true, if I could drop one thing from the sequel trilogy, it would be the Death Star obsession. I think a lot of stuff smooths itself out without that. And that includes Episode 7's very close homage / adherence to the style of Episode 4. So that's that one.
At least the, what was it called? The Planet Cracker thing? The Moon Cracker, Sun Cracker, whatever it was?
Sun Crusher.
Yep.
At
At least that was different.
It was a Death Star, but bigger.
Was it? I thought it was a...
It's a Death Star, but more destructive.
Okay.
It was actually incredibly small.
Like Starkiller Base.
Yeah.
Starkiller Base was Death Star, but took out 5 planets.
Yeah, just bigger. Well, yeah, it could. It's cool. It could absorb a sun.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that before. That was interesting. I personally, as much as I don't like that we did Death Star but bigger, like the way that it's taking the energy and the way that you can see this like rectangle slowly leaving the sky, and then as you're looking down upon what will be the future last conversation Han Solo is having, you're seeing the light being squeezed out just as it's being squeezed out, or what Kylo thinks is squeezing out the last of his weakness, but really he's squeezing out the last of like bits of himself that there are, and he finds himself weaker because of it. The light goes out. All that stuff is really beautiful to me. I just don't think it needs to be in a Death Star 3. You know? Okay. Who shot first? Han or Greedo?
I don't care.
I don't have an opinion. It's just that what's currently there sucks.
McClunky? Oh.
No. The effect of Han losing his moving his head is just it's a fourth grader can make it in After Effects.
Sure.
Update it. It sucks right now.
Just have him not move his head.
Keep McClunky.
Just have Han shoot first.
Yeah. And here's my last thing that I hate about Star Wars is that they cut all of the Rebellion Padme scenes in Episode 3.
Yeah.
Episode 3 is a long movie. I get it.
Mon Mothma, right?
Mon Mothma, like Bail. They just had the delegation of 2000. I don't think they're we could talk about how Finn doesn't have much to do. Padme in Episode 3 is just she's preggers.
Yeah.
And doesn't do anything. And then she's sad. And then she's so sad she dies, despite having two new people that rely on her.
Sure.
She just kind of, I feel like Padme's character kind of gets pushed off because we have a lot to do in Episode 3. And then we had some interesting stuff and we cut that out for time. I think it's an egregious mistake. I would take 10 more Canto bites just so I can have that.
Sure. I mean, I guess that's the thing. If Canto had at least utilizing Finn is what it did, but you just cut out Padme entirely.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, he at least had the conversation with Xana.
Sure.
Like Padme doesn't have anything to do but to be like Anakin's wife.
Finn talks with Rose, and they talk about elements of the galaxy and stuff. And like, there's some things there where I'm like, okay, well, I think I could have gotten this in maybe a different way, but I think in that, like you could have had more with Bail, and I love Bail.
Yeah.
Mon Mothma would have been great to have in there. Just introducing more of those characters to the prequel series.
I'm super glad. I mean, gracious even that George Lucas and Dave Filoni decided like, hey, let's do more Padme stories in the Clone Wars, because I don't think anybody was asking for it, because they didn't get people being like, oh, I love the Padme stuff, do more of that. I think that maybe they realize, hey, the Padme stuff's been fumbled. Let's do it right. And Padme is everything that I think Leia would look up to in the Clone Wars. But I don't feel the same way in Episode 3. But dark times.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, the only thing I have left on mine, which is I pretty much covered essentially number 1 and 2 for me was the dagger and the Palpatine versus the 4 Jedi.
Sure.
my main thing, the first thing I thought of when I was like, what do I not like about Star Wars, was the fandom, or the online fandom, more specifically probably, was like the first thing where I was like, I hate that, like, Ahmed Best, or shoot, I can't think of the actress who plays Rose.
Yep, I got it. It's right on the tip of my tongue.
Mm-hmm.
So just letting you know that.
But like, you know, the fact that they've had to like pull away, or they had to delete social media, or that they felt, even Hayden Christensen, like, I hate that it's not just about like, here's the art and what I do or don't like about it. It turns into like, that's the person that's gonna get on.
Kelly Marie Tran.
Yeah, Tran.
Kelly Marie Tran. I'm listening.
But it turned into, that's the person I'm gearing all my hate towards of why I don't like this movie.
Yeah.
Not about like what could be a constructive way of, like, with Canto Bight, I could try to offer some ideas of like what could be better for Finn, or what I would have liked to have seen, or something. But I'm not going to attack like the actress of Rose or the actor of Finn, or I mean, even at least like blaming Kathleen Kennedy is at least a higher point, where like that's a producer who was like, you know, working on this stuff, versus blaming just straight up actors. You know, Jake Lloyd.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, there's just different elements of that where I'm like, you don't have to blame them specifically. Maybe you don't like their acting. That's fine. But like, if you don't like, George Lucas destroyed my childhood bringing in the prequels, you don't have to blame Jake Lloyd for that. Just blame George Lucas and the guy who's creating it. Like, I'd rather go that route than blaming specific actors and actresses. But then also just, it turns into such a thing of like, oh, you don't like that? Oh, you do like that? And it's like, then it's a hate battle back and forth. And I'd rather have the like conversations like we have, or I've had conversations with other fans where it's like just a conversation. Okay. And then sometimes you can talk it out and you're like, you know what? Maybe I'll look at that again and see if I look at it a different way. Or, you know what? I understand what you mean. I wish they would have done it differently.
I 100% agree with everything you say, but you know why it is the way it is? Because what you just said about, like, let's actually talk about these things and like go over some of their points. Maybe we can find like some agreements. That's boring. You know what's not boring? When I hate something.
Sure.
You know what's not boring? When I hate others that have an opinion about art. That's gonna get clicks. That's gonna get engagement, and that is what has happened to us. Like, it's not a Star Wars problem. It's just a problem. It's a problem on all things. Star Wars is just big, so it feels like it's a big Star Wars problem. But Star Wars is just a subset of people, and this is a problem that people are starting to have when it comes to disagreeing, or, you know, having differing opinions, and how you resolve that. It has become like create sides and battle each other to the point where the storytellers are afraid to take chances. And when that happens, we get this crap.
Yeah.
Crap.
Yeah. Well, you don't take a chance so that you don't get anything new and cool or anything like that.
And I understand some people want to be like, well, I think it's crap now. It's like, that's fine. You can express yourself 100%. I love when people express themselves. I have really good friends that do not agree with me on certain things. Me and you don't agree about certain things, especially about Star Wars. But we have a good time doing it together, you know?
Sure.
There is no, let's have a good time. I used to go online. I'm like, I'm going to have a great time, you know, talking about the prequels. And I had to sidestep these 40-year-old, 50-year-old people that were mad that they couldn't watch something with childlike wonder. You know?
No, I get you.
And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, but if you can't watch it like a child anymore, it's probably, you might have outgrown this thing, you know? Yeah. I'm still very childlike in a lot of my enjoyments.
Yeah.
Like, it's just what I like to do. And I like to come to, especially these new movies, especially when they hire storytellers that have something to say. Like, some people don't like The Last Jedi. I love The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi is Rian Johnson's response to what Star Wars makes him feel, which is like, when I was a kid, this stuff was so important and you could do anything. And now I'm an adult and I don't feel like I can. And that's Luke Skywalker. And Luke Skywalker finds the strength to say, I can one more time, just like Anakin Skywalker did. I can do the right thing one more time. That's such great stuff. So I'll always jump in there with a storyteller, not so much with the fandom at large, because I think there's a sickness happening.
Sure.
So my advice, and you do the same thing, is literally just spare yourself. You will have a greater time if you don't engage with that content.
Sure. Yeah. No, and I try to do that. I also like, and we talk about like trailers and stuff I don't necessarily try to jump into. I don't try to get a bunch of the information before watching, just because it's fun to experience it from the storyteller perspective versus like, I already know these twists and turns, so now I'm not surprised for them. But there's so many things that I wish that we would have gotten that have been canceled, and I feel like some of it's because of the outbursts online, where I would have loved to have seen what they might have done with Darth Maul after the events of Solo. But because so many people were like, Solo, and it's so bad, and there's no, and I'm like, I've rewatched it recently, and I'm like, Solo's a pretty good movie. I don't understand the hate for it.
It's a shame we don't have a sequel to it already.
No, like there should have been that, or what they could have done with Boba Fett, or what they could have done with Darth Maul and Ray Park and Sam Witwer kind of being Darth Maul together on screen would have been so cool. But we didn't get any of that, and they've also, Disney have had I feel like they've jumped around on, let's do sequel trilogy. No one liked that. Let's bring back prequel stuff. We're going to touch on that. It was like we have to touch on original trilogy. We'll bring in prequel trilogy. Don't touch sequel trilogy. Now we can touch sequel trilogy. And I feel like that's because the fandom has been so vocal on what they don't like. They're trying to pick and choose where they should put stuff to hopefully appease as many as they can. But because of that, they don't get to naturally just tell the stories they want to tell or that they can tell. And maybe, one of my things about the sequel trilogy is that it didn't have a great through line, and I wish it would have. Getting someone like Dave Filoni or someone like that who I think really feels the same way like we do about Star Wars, and he wants to have that constant, like, this is what it's like, here's what the story is, here's where we're going, to the point that Sam Witwer can bring up, like, well, Padme and the mom already met. He's like, dang it, all right, going to have to change that. Like, that's something that he's concerned about and wants to be able to work with, and hopefully we can get more of that in the future and less of the hate aspect of it all.
Hopefully we can. I mean, one of the reasons that Aaron and I decided, like, hey, let's take all of our Star Wars love and put it on a channel is because we could see there was a need for a channel like this where you can come and just enjoy something. I'm not saying you have to enjoy something, but you don't need to come here and be told why everything that you think and feel is wrong. There are so many channels out there that engage you in that way to earn money from you. We operate this channel at a loss, like we do this just for the passion. Like we could be spending our time and doing a lot more monetary profitable things, but Star Wars is such a love in our life, and we also kind of feel its burden as people that people literally come to see, like, what did you feel like, to get that information out there, to get these feelings out there. It's why we're trying so hard to go over every piece of Star Wars media that there is. It's why we're doing new things like this coming Saturday's Son of Dathomir, where we just have so much fun.
It was a lot of fun.
And as much as the first video that you're going to be watching on Saturday is fun, May 4th video is even better. So there's a lot of things to be excited by and to be happy by. And as we just talked about for the last too long, things that you don't like, you can talk about it in a fun way.
Yes, very much so. And we will talk about it in a fun way again on May 23rd when we come back with our next Badonkagonk. And we're going to be covering the book Queen's Shadow.
Yes, sir. E.K. Johnson. Queen's Peril. Queen's Shadow was the last one. Queen's Peril, E.K. Johnson, is the second Padme.
Queen's Peril. Okay, yeah. All right, cool. Well, we're going to watch that or read that, talk about that all on May 23rd. But make sure there should be a premiere already set up for Son of Dathomir you can find right here on Wave Squadron. So go give that a follow, and Eric and I should both be able to hopefully talk with you guys a little bit as that's going on and enjoy the chat as the premiere happens.
And if you see a Gamorrean out in the wild, give them some sandwiches. They're hungry. Bye, everybody.